all of it. Go for
I
it.
love it. I love it. Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Erin Brown. Erin lost her leg to a bone cancer that affects primarily young people and children. Walking into the world as an amputee, she was shocked at the lack of infrastructure, policy, programs, initiatives, support systems, and networks to help and bring awareness in this new world that she had now entered and needed to navigate through. Since then, she has started many initiatives, including giving supplies, supporting similar people in sports, assisting in getting them employment, and making health care services more accessible. I am thrilled to have this powerhouse on our virtual stage today and share her story and let us know more about what she is working towards to educate and provide services for this community. Welcome, Erin. How are you?
I am divine. Happy Grata Thursday. Every Thursday, I say happy Grata Thursdays to person so that they remember to stay in gratitude. Thank you so much for having
I
me.
love that. Why on Thursdays?
Yes. Well, I don't know. It sounds the whole energy of the Grata Thursday instead of gratitude. So I actually do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So at least twice a week, you get a reminder to stay in gratitude for me.
Oh, that's awesome. It actually did. When you said that, I was
Thank
like, I
you.
did. That's fantastic. Well, I
Mhm.
thank you so much for being here and taking some time out of your day to share some of your journey and
Mhm.
some of the awesome things that you're working on in your world and in your community. Can you let everyone know where you are from? Let's start there.
Ooh, isn't that the best part? When they get to really know what part of the world are you from?
Yes.
And so I call myself Erin Bionic Brown. Well, I don't call myself Erin Bionic Brown. I've been named that by a very young, very amazing young girl who saw me with my prosthetic on, and she was like, she's half robot, half human. She's bionic. So
I
Erin
love it.
Bionic Brown is what has been coined, courtesy of her. But also, I'm an island gal. I call it Island Gal Magic. I am in the Bahamas. So the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, that little beautiful place that has over 700 islands and keys. That is where I am from, originally from Grand Bahama, but currently in New Providence, which is the capital.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to start this out because when I was writing up your intro, and I always do
Yeah.
background information and read through all of this stuff and try to just educate myself a little bit on what the main topic is going to be so I don't go in totally cold. And then this way also I can kind of dive in a little bit deeper because I know
Mhm.
a smidge about what's going on. But
Yes.
one of the things that I came across
Yes.
while doing some research on disabilities or amputees
Yes.
is this word disabled,
Hmm.
and how there was so many articles that were going back and forth on whether or not to
Hmm.
use it. There
Hmm.
was words like differently abled,
Yeah.
special needs, people
Yeah.
with health conditions, impairments. And I just, before we dive in, I kind of just want to get your personal opinion on how you feel
Hmm.
this community should be addressed.
Hmm.
Should we be using the word disabled or disability?
Thank you so much for asking that. So let me give you my customized, very purposeful Erin Brown Connects introduction. Hi, I am Erin Brown, a disability inclusion consultant. I am a short blonde, black haired I'm a Sean blonde haired black female wearing blue tinted glasses. My pronouns are she and her, and I self identify as a limb difference individual, also known as an above the knee amputee. And so, to the question of should we be using the word disable or disabilities, I say that introduction very purposeful because one, it gives access to those who are using text, speech, audio to receive contents to know who is speaking, all of the characteristics that make them up as a person. They're able to not only visualize, but receive the content of how that person is presented, is acknowledged, or represented, right? And so, disability, that word, use it. It is a part of our identity as sex, gender, race, sexual orientation, religion, all of these things. From time we have purposefully, intentionally, as a society, collected data, acknowledged, make sure that we identify those persons who identify as a male or female, and so on. We now need to do it for disability. Why? Because it is a part of our identity. It is also the only way that we will be counted, we will be included, that funding, programs, budget programming, all of these things that we look at as sustainable, innovative, creative, or even disaggregated data. It allows nations, leaders, investors, sponsors to now be an active participant in the development of a nation, a space. But it also allows the human being who has many layers, such as disability, to be included, to be given access, and to have opportunities to be a nation builder. So, yes, it's not a bad word. Disabled, disability, they're not bad words. What they are, and what we're finding more in these conversations that you have kind of led into, is the disability or identity first language, which is a disabled woman, or person first language, which is a woman with a disability. Both of them are very, very valued and very valuable, right? Very present, acknowledge my authentic self. Yet, differently abled, and I'm sorry if I'm shocking you in saying this, it's the human race. It's all of us. It is all of us who are human beings who have different abilities, different likes, passions, preferences. We're all differently abled.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I want to ask, and I'm asking this question because I
Mm-hmm.
did not know any of this information until I started doing this podcast over a year ago, probably almost going on 2 years. Um, and I'm going to ask so that you can explain it to the audience who, much like me, was completely
Mm-hmm.
naive.
Yes.
Equality, equity, inclusion.
Yes.
Can you give us a little rundown on that?
So we know now that it's absolutely trending about equality. Well, no, equity. We're hearing that
Thank
a
you.
whole lot. And so equality is what we've heard for a very long time, such as diversity. So we usually heard diversity, equality, and inclusion. And so, diversity, we haven't really tapped into the disability narrative when we speak to diversity. We heard race and we heard gender, right? Disability is still very much lacking. And we're hearing more about sexual orientation, gender, right? And so, equity, though, equity speaks to identifying, acknowledging, or recognizing the specific need of a person and providing them with that need, that removes barriers, that reduces or mitigates challenges, that empowers and also gives an even, equal playing field, space, environment, workplace culture that allows that person to show up authentically with all of the tools that they need, right? So the term equity, we know that it's about giving everybody the same thing. Unfortunately, that's not going to work. One of the things that come to mind is there was a image that was this classroom, and they had I think it was an ape, a fish in a fish tank, and an elephant. I think it was like 3 or 4 animals all in the classroom, and the teacher was teaching the same thing, right? They were writing on the board about something. And the picture, the image conveyed that the subject and the way that the teacher was providing the information to all of the learners in that space was only meeting one of the three persons. And so that speaks to equality, because the topic, the way that they're providing, the communicating with the information was the standard, was the politically correct way, was the way that we have learned that this is how we need to do it for equality. Yet we needed to now integrate equity into those policies, procedures, practices, the way that we engage in environment, give access and inclusion, to now speak to equality, because you're not going to talk to a fish about land matters. They're never coming on land, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to talk to an elephant about climbing a tree. We're not
Yes.
going to do that, right? And
Yes.
so we're now looking at all learners, and we're ensuring that we give equitable spaces, communication, access, inclusion, to increase opportunities, but also for it to be sustainable.
Absolutely. Do you think that that is one of the reasons why we're hearing so much more about this STEM schooling, is because of that?
Yes. So for a very long time, we also always heard about STEM.
Yeah.
And then there was the conversation about, well, where's the arts? That's science, technology, engineering, and math, right? And so before, when your child said to you, I want to be an artist, you're looking at them like, I'm sorry. Have you heard of the starving artist? Have you heard, like, these things are not just cliche, they're actually starving. So, do you really want to get into that industry? But yet, we recognize the lack thereof, or not giving opportunities for the arts, performing arts, for digital arts, for creativity to really be blossomed, put us in a place where we were either getting the brain drain, or we were not really tapping into creativity and innovation. So now it's not STEM anymore. We have literally took the stem, which is what we consider a stem of a flower. I'm being very literal now. If you have a flower, there's a stem. And we kind of take it a bit further, which still is aligned with STEM, because it's like physics. Water can be ice, and it can be steam, and it can be liquid. So now we've added STEAM, which includes the art that focuses on equitable spaces, because the different hemispheres that you use in your brain, literally, and all of these spaces are very diverse, and we must engage them in very intentional ways. And so STEAM is one of the biggest component that we're finding more inclusion, or more access, or even more engagement from our students, our youth, and even our adults. They're
Wow.
finding themselves in a later age saying, I've always wanted to draw, or I love being on stage. I love creating, directing. And these are now available to them with no shade. We say no shade, no tea, when we're trying to say, we trying to give you the in to let you know this is where you need to be. Now they have access without having to raise their hand and say, excuse me, but I'm into the arts. Is there a space for me? We've now included it. So it's STEAM. It's
I,
no longer STEM.
yeah.
It's STEAM.
Is that across the board? Are they
And
making
so, oh,
adjustments?
say it for me one more time. I
Are
realize
they
that.
are
Mhm.
they making adjustments so that it's across the board STEAM now?
Yes, and you're
Okay.
finding it in very equitable ways. And I say that purposefully. So for us within the community of disabilities, you're now finding a lot of guilds that speak to actors with disabilities, dance, dancers with disabilities, inclusive interpretation. I think I just saw today where they said that Israel has their first deaf and blind acting group. It is growing in such a quick way. I think we're kind of catching up to it,
That's
but
great.
also we're being very intentional with it, especially here in the Bahamas. And being a disability inclusion consultant, we're working on STEM for oceans, right? We don't have the STEAM in there as yet because we're focusing on climate change. We're focusing on how persons with disabilities impact that, can engage in being an active player in climate change, ecosystems. And so we're now launching summer programs that speak specifically to youth with disabilities. And then we also have another component, which is Bahamas Artist Movement, which speaks only about the arts. And so having the conversation about separate and apart and also inclusion is very important. So in our community, we're used to hearing, oh, special needs, so we need to send you over to the left. Oh, you're a student with a disability, so go ahead and go around the corner, register for that, and that's for you. But yet, within our office, within the Office of Disabilities and Compliance, which is in the Bahamas at the University of the Bahamas, we are speaking to inclusive education. So we're now giving tools for your toolbox to not just think about it as something that has to be separate. We're going to watch in real time STEM become STEAM in all areas because we're still trying it out. We're figuring out how can we add it, but we're also recognizing that this type of inclusion and integration is part of the sustainable narrative.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What is an ecosystem?
So, an ecosystem is how an environment or a space is designed for its most effectiveness, sustainability. So, I'm in the Bahamas, so I'm going to keep referencing to the Bahamas, the Caribbean, those type of environments. So, for us, we are very interested in ensuring that small states are able to develop, are able to retain and manage what we have. So we have a vast body of water and a small island. So New Providence is 7 miles by 21 miles. Yet our population is over 400,000, right? And that's like a kind of drop in the bucket for all of the numbers that are worldwide, right?
Yeah.
Yet we have to be active players, active nation builders, and thinking along the lines that Gilligan's Island was not just a show. Gilligan's Island, and for those who don't know anything about that, it showed a group of persons who were stranded on an island and they literally had to make that their home. So they used everything that was native and natural to the spaces. So small island nations like the Bahamas, we have to recognize that our impact, whether it is trash, whether it is the type of materials we bring in, we manufacture, whether it is our native fruits, our sea, our animals and our ecosystems, the way they live in the water, our fish, all of that is important that we take the steps to sustain it and to allow it to grow. And
Mm.
so the STEM for Oceans program for youth with disabilities, I kind of love it because it shows off that youth with disabilities not only can show up in these areas, but we know a little bit of thing or two that we can give to access and inclusion on how we can do it in a very creative and innovative way that we're not used to doing because we're so used to saying, we'll develop this program and throw it to the side. No, we're asking you your current models for your programs, your businesses, integrate disability inclusion to it And we're just going to continue to grow.
Fantastic. Shannon wrote a comment here too, if you want to read that out loud.
Sure, I was blessed to go to an inclusive high school back in the 1990s. We had children of all abilities in our classes with aids if necessary. Was amazing to see people present or engage in elective classes. Awesome that that is happening now. Listen, that is that is the moment, right? That is the shift that all of us have access to when we're non disabled, because we're in these spaces that were kind of craft for non disabled persons. You didn't really think about ensuring that there were access ramps, the doorways were wide enough, the tables that you provided was a certain height in case a person was sitting in a wheelchair or may live as a little person. Also, the teachers was giving access to the resources and the equipment and the procedures and the classroom styles that made sure all of the learners were able to receive the content, whether they were a ape, a fish in a fish tank, or an elephant. You were able to learn and gain and select different classes that was aligned with you, that you knew this is my passion, I want to learn more. And so inclusive classrooms are important, and I'm so glad that you got to experience that, because another invaluable component of living with a disability or even in a marginalized group, so that's low income persons who may not have the finances or the availability because of not only their gender but their race or where they're located on earth. It allowed them to now engage in a very real way, but also, and here's the kicker, non-disabled persons recognize that life is not over if you acquired a disability. A disability is so intersectional. By the time you're about 70, senior age, whatever you want to coin it as, those eyes, those knees, those hips, they're tired. It's a muscle. And so all of the things that we demand in our community, the access, the inclusion, you're going to use them in your age to be not only successful, but just fulfilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can totally see that. Speaking of that, I would love for you to talk about your biggest challenge.
Ooh.
What would you consider, because we can't assume, what would you consider to be the biggest challenge that you've had in your life? And what did you learn from that challenge?
So, Sabrina, I always tell persons I'm an onion. I am definitely going to make you cry, but the plate of food and the meal that we are creating is going to taste so good because we had onions in it, right? And so for me, there's different layers of biggest challenge. I'm a mother. I'm a mother of a 19-year-old and a recently 7-year-old who she just knows she's already an adult and she knows what she wants to do. I'm also a parent who lost a child at the age of 18 months due to drowning. And for me, my biggest challenge is defining my role as a parent and what that means, not only for myself, but for my children. And so when you are living in families with disabilities, and especially if you're a parent with a disability and you have disabled children or non-disabled children, the critique is very high. I remember not being able to get a 9 to 5 because of my disability. I was showing up to the jobs. I had everything great on paper. Like I was just fabulous on paper. But yet when you showed up, it was like, nope, we're not interested. Thank you. You look very good for a one leg girl, or, woo, you speak very well to be a person with a disability. Like those type of comments. And then I have to go home to my children and figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? Wow. So for me, my biggest challenge was for me to accept me authentically, and to know that even as a parent who, by society terms, don't have it all,
Mhm.
do not show up like everyone else, may not have the mindset that or the access that everyone else has, that I still have value. And being an athlete as well helped me a lot, because one thing that I've learned as a para triathlete and being an athlete as a non disabled person and an athlete with a disability has taught me that sports transcends all of that. When you show up, everybody cheering for you to get to the to the finish line. They don't
Mhm.
care if you can see the finish line, hear the finish line, or you need adaptive equipment to get to the finish line. They want you to win. And so I took that in a lot with my children. So I became very active. I may not have had a 9 to 5, but I volunteered in a lot of places and I took them with me. And that helped me a lot with redefining who I am and my purpose. And so my biggest challenge would be recognizing my value and
Mhm.
accepting me authentically. Yeah. Yeah.
That
What about
just brought me back. I volunteered for the Special Olympics for, I think, for like 16 years.
you?
Yeah, in 4 different states.
Wow.
And such an amazing time to be able to go. But you're so right with that.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter like how
Nope.
slow or
Nope.
if they get lost on the track or whatever it is, you're rooting for
Yeah.
people to cross, to win, to get there,
Yeah.
to make the basket or whatever it is. And yeah, you're so right. I actually haven't thought of that for a while. So thank you
You're
for
welcome.
bringing that back up. But you're 100% right.
Yeah.
And what a great initiative
Mhm.
to be rooting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
And that's what I love about sports, but that's what I love about engagement. If we be absolutely honest, engagement and the overarching access. Access is a human right. And for a very long time, we have taught our children with disabilities, whether it is by their parents with disabilities or even non disabled parents, that access is very selective. And it is in thought process or theory, because we speak a lot about the ableistic theory of creating wonderful things for non disabled persons, even though statistically we're over 1 billion strong and growing, right?
Wow.
So you really can't sit there and say, well, it's just a small group. No, it isn't. And it's one of
Wow.
the demographics that everyone, basically everyone that lives long enough or has an accident, an incident, or medical diagnosis, they enter into this demographic. And guess what? We welcome you, because why? It is a we conversation. Inclusive spaces is for all of us. Access is a human right. And so it allows us now to truly live in an inclusive space, to truly understand what our lived experiences are, and to take it now from children, infants, toddlers, to not sell them that because they live with a disability, they can't have a future. There's no universities for you, there's no career development, no leadership qualities. You have all of those things. And if you missed it through educational wise, if you missed it through community and social involvement, if you get into a sport, you will catch up very fast, because your coaches, the persons who are sponsoring equipment, the companies that are designing innovative things for their athletes to use, they're looking for you and
Yeah.
they need for you to show up. And so it allows parents who have had the mindset that I just want to protect, the world is cruel. We
Mhm.
know it's cruel. We
Yeah.
also know that we have to teach each human being how to not only live independently, but how to be advocates, how to amplify their voices, how to understand their rights, and how they, when it's not so, when there is no access, to show up authentically and say, well, hi, I'm Erin Brown. I love para triathlons, which means I swim, I cycle, and I run. I know it's crazy. Persons think that I'm insane, but all athletes are insane. Do you know what we put ourselves through in order to compete? So don't worry about that part. What I need, though, is to be able to not only have inclusive training and development, but also the equipment that I'm going to need. My coaches, they're going to need to know exactly how can I integrate my current fitness strategies for this athlete, because why? The Paralympics, the Special Olympics, and the Olympics is available to you. So why not? Cheer me on, wave that flag, and let's get going.
Yes. I love how you're putting a parallel to individuals who have been injured,
Yeah.
because I've been injured and I've never even thought of that. The reason that I was able to get around is because of individuals like you who are fighting.
Mm,
Yes.
well, that's
There
powerful.
was one time, I broke my leg in October 2020. I've never broken anything before. So it was like
Mhm,
totally a brand new experience for me, but it literally like snapped in half, like just fell off my leg. And for what it was,
mhm,
the experience was fine. It was a very good learning experience for me.
mhm,
Um, I went through all of the stages of all of the things that people go through.
mhm.
But yeah, shopping, the little wheelchair thing at like the Target or Walmart or whatever that you get to go in, and the battery not being fully charged,
Ooh.
or it like stopping in the middle of the store, and then like, how do you
Yeah,
get
what do
back
you
to your
do?
car? Yeah. Um, and I only had to deal with that for, maybe 6 months.
Yeah,
And there was a couple of things.
yeah,
So I can imagine the frustration that could occur
yeah,
if this is a lifelong thing, and
yes.
this is something that's popping up when you're in
Mhm,
a hurry or a rush, or you're just trying to run in and do something very quickly, or whatever, the array of things that
mhm.
individuals deal with,
Yeah.
that would just add that extra layer of frustration. Um,
Thank you
yeah,
so
so
much for
thank you.
sharing that.
First of all, thank you for doing it. And second of all, thank you for like helping me even recognize that. I
Mhm.
didn't even like think of that.
Yeah.
That those are your community is
Yeah.
probably the community who's getting it, so that when someone like us breaks our leg and we have to use it for a couple of months, get to use it.
And that is why I thank you for sharing that, because it's a we
Yeah.
conversation. For very long, we've been
Wow.
taught it's a separate and apart conversation when it's actually good business sense. It's
Yes.
actually good sustainable sense. It speaks to innovation and creativity. And so, what I want to add to that is that here's one of the analogies I love to share with persons for them to understand what access truly gives a person. So, when you're experiencing a temporary disability, and for most of the non-disabled persons, when they experience a temporary disability, they broke a leg, they have to use a pair of crutches, they may have to use a wheelchair, a walker, whatever it is, right? For most of those persons, they're working. And while they're working, they are able to take time off from work because it's built in. If you have sick days, or if you happen to have insurance, your insurance cover a few things. You're able to purchase a pair of crutches. It comes with a prescription. They write it on a pad and you magically give it to someone and you get it. And so therefore you have an adaptive equipment. And it's only for a period of time. You then are referred to a physiotherapist or a specialist that then look at it a bit deeper to make sure that you're doing all of the things that you need. All of that speaks to access that majority of the time a person living with a disability do not have access to.
Wow.
There are no programs for that. There are no easy referral processes, inclusive referral processes, or even showing up to a doctor's office or an emergency space and you are deaf and you need sign language interpretation because that's the only language that you know, and nobody there has it. Nobody there knows it.
Wow.
There's nobody to call. And so you're now sitting there looking at them, looking at you, looking at them, right? And you're like, okay,
Wow.
so what are we going to do? But those moments, even of the temporary experience of being able to gain certain access, right? And then you show up in public spaces. There's no electric chairs, or the chairs, like you say, are either dead or it dies in between you getting around. You're
Yeah.
pulling up, yeah, you're pulling up to a access parking space, or we also refer to it as a disabled parking space, which should be at the entrance because it's the safest and the shortest space to get into a facility, a space, a building. And you're recognizing that persons are already parking there. They don't have a decal. And now you have to find somewhere else to park. Or you can be feisty like me and I just pull behind you. I just pull behind you and then I go inside. And then if I'm feeling really, really nice that day, I go to the customer service place and I said, please let that person know that when I'm done shopping, I will be right out, right? Because it's all a teachable moment and it's all to make you aware that what you thought was a quick shop, a quick experience of running in and getting something quick, oh, I'm just going to be 2 minutes, because you hear that a lot, actually removed access for a person that needed to be parked
Wow.
closest to the entrance to safely enter a space in order for them to complete what they need done, right?
Yeah.
So when you start to get into those public spaces, I think that's when persons with temporary disabilities kind of get a glimpse of
Yeah.
what persons living with long-term or permanent disabilities, chronic illnesses as well, or the aged or senior citizens experience every day.
Yeah.
And those are the factors that we look at. Is it raining? Am I going to get a cart? Is the parking space going to be taken? I don't think I'm going to go out today. And so we talk ourselves out of being active participants because we understand that these are the things that nobody else necessarily thinks about.
Yes. When I had my leg, I would not go out in the rain. But you
Because you
can't
don't
do
like
that.
the floor, Sabrina. Nobody likes the floor.
Yeah, but if you're you can't just stay in your house for the rest of your
No, you
life.
can't. Yet persons are doing it and their support systems are encouraging it. And that's because their experiences, I don't want you to go out there and have to demand it, fight for it, things that should be already put in place. And so there are persons like me who acquired a disability at the age of 23 due to bone cancer. I had to have my left leg above the knee removed. So for me, I lived life with some access, with all of the access. It wasn't even spoken about, it just was, right?
Yeah.
And then when my leg was removed, my access instantly, while I was still in the hospital, coming up from anesthesia, not knowing what was going to happen, it was removed. And I
Wow.
recognized that when I then had to leave the hospital, and I'm going, okay, so what do I do now? And my family is bawling, crying because I'm now living as a limb difference individual. And I'm like, um, but I still have my expertise, knowledge. I'm passionate about things. I still have goals. I'm still an athlete. Like a leg does not, and I will not allow it to define my
I love that.
existence on an
Yeah.
earth that is all about innovation, right?
Yeah.
Yet that is not the average conversation. That is not the average mindset. And I continue to go through, and I've been through so much that I have intentionally said to myself, Erin, you're going to show up. whether it is in the Bahamas, whether it is in another country, whether it is in another region, whether they don't speak a lick of English, you're going to show up.
Yeah.
And I do that intentionally because I understand I acquired a disability. There are persons who were born with a disability who has been sold the lie that their life cannot be fulfilled, their life cannot thrive. There is no success in disability. We need to normalize that. Can we start that tonight? We need to normalize success with disability because it exists. And oh boy, are we excited to share our narratives, our lived experiences? No, it's not easy. Yet we exist and we want to be acknowledged
Yeah.
for our identity. I live with a disability. I'm a disabled woman, a disabled person, a disabled professional. I am a business owner. I'm a mother. I am a global citizen in a world that may not have started off designed for inclusivity, but they surely ready for sustainability, innovation, and creativity. So guess who you need to tap into?
Yeah.
Persons, people with disabilities.
Yeah. 100. I can totally see
100.
that. I totally see that. What's the number one lesson you've learned about life?
The number one lesson I've learned is your words change your world. So, for example, like I said, I've been through a lot. I remember thinking about all the lack that I didn't have. And we started off the show by saying Happy Grata Thursday. And it's my reminder to stay in gratitude because even though there's always going to be that extra penny you need, that extra, what they say, happiness is the destination, or no, it's the journey, not the destination. Because when you reach to that goal, you kind of see some other things that did look really good. So you want to get to that one, right? And so for me, I am about identifying what I have and being grateful for it, but also speaking it into existence. So when I became the first para triathlete for the Bahamas, that did not happen overnight. I remember my amputation. I remember receiving a prosthetic leg by a donor because I didn't have insurance. And they asked me when I was leaving Nassau to go to my checkups, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'm an athlete. So I thought about participating in the marathon. And they was like, well, you need a leg to participate in the marathon. I said, well, I kind of want to ask if I could do it with my crutches or maybe a wheelchair. And he looked at me like, do you realize that's 26.2 miles?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yeah. I said the biggest challenge is getting them to say yes, not necessarily the 26.2 miles. And guess
Wow.
what? That person, total stranger, was a prosthetist who then donated my prosthetic leg to me. And I
Wow.
participated in the marathon the following year. I got that leg during the summer. I started to work out and I didn't have money to go to a gym. So what I did, I started to walk the dog. I started to walk to the park. I started to build up my muscles. And yes, persons was looking at me like, you realize you're outside, right? Like, you realize you're not like, I could see your leg. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to do the marathon. How? Don't worry about it. My name is Erin Brown. When you see me, you cheer for me. And this has
Wow.
always been my just whole aura and being of myself. And that's why when we spoke about the challenges was accepting who you are. Accepting who you are, no matter what the circumstances are who you are, and you have the ability to enhance, grow, expand, attract, manifest, and it starts with your words. And so
Yeah.
the biggest lesson for me is changing your words because I said that even though I had no idea how or if they was going to allow me to go into the marathon. But by 2011, I became the first Bahamian above the knee amputee to complete a marathon in the Bahamas. Was that my goal? No. My goal was for me was to do a marathon, whether it was with a prosthetic, a wheelchair, pair of crutches, whatever it was. access to that because I've always been an athlete, and the removal of my leg did not remove that passion, that drive, that insane desire to push myself beyond humanly possible to compete,
Yeah.
to show up authentically. And I did it. And not only did I do it, we were able to do a group of other athletes. I was the only female athlete with a disability, but we got other males who also live with a disability. We created a group and we did like a relay, and we did it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it started off with me, but it didn't end with me.
That's awesome. Very cool. They're probably so grateful. How fun.
And they always say, Erin, you're the one person that you're the no excuse mascot. That's what they said. They was like, I was sitting there saying, I don't feel like doing this. I'm tired. I don't know about this. And then I meet you, I see you, I hear somebody talking but you, I watch a video and I'm like, do I really want to do that? Yes, I do. Okay, we're going to figure out how to do this. Because for me, no is fuel. Fair is fuel. And a lot of times I recognize when I don't want to show up and I say to myself, you're valuable. You deserve more. You are the representation of who you want to be, where you want to be, how you want to be seen, but you have to show up. Every time I showed up, life like just surprised me. And if I didn't show up, I wouldn't have met that person. I wouldn't have engaged with this person. We wouldn't have had this conversation. And so I came to the realization that my superpower is showing up. And I want to share that with persons like you have the same magic to show up. I used to get up 3 a.m. in the morning to train. Oh my gosh. The hardest thing to do when everyone's snoring around you, when the bed feels so warm, when you just know that what in your right mind made you feel like 3 a.m. was a time to get up. But I had to do it because at the time my daughter was alive, who passed at 18 months. And if I waited until she got up, ain't nobody was training.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody was thinking about, no, I need to get these and I need to work these muscles. I need to get in the right headspace. I was only thinking about breastfeeding, diapers, and wipes by the time she got up. And so I honored myself and I said to myself, you are worth this. You are worth this. You are more than just what everyone else see you as. And in order for you to remind yourself of that, in order for you to embody that, you have to show up. So some days I didn't get up at 3 o'clock. I look at that alarm and I say, I am so sorry. I can't do it today. But the other mornings I say, nope, let's go. Nope, let's go. And as I shared my journey, people used to be calling me, is you up? Because we here and we waiting for you. And what's going on? And so that helped to motivate me and to help me understand it's not just about me. There's a whole community waiting for us. And that's what life is, your community.
Definitely. I want to take a moment just to acknowledge those that are watching live. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
Thank you for all of the comments and all of the wonderful goodies that you're sending to Erin here. For those of you watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so that we know where you are watching us at. We can send you some love. But I would love, Erin, for you to tell us a little bit more about what you do, your websites, your social media, where people can find you.
So I started the only disability-led consultancy firm. I am a disability inclusion consultant, and that consultancy firm is Erin Brown Connects, Disability Advocacy and Inclusion Management. Yes, it's a mouthful, but I wanted to ensure that you know that when we're opening doors and you're connecting with us, it's about disability advocacy and disability inclusion management. And so it's very purposeful. As a disability inclusion consultant, we were able to, during the pandemic, to finally have a website. So it's erinbrownconnects.com. We're on social media platforms, Instagram. I know, right? I call it the round of applause because that was something, Sabrina. We were like, okay, we're showing up, and we're not just showing up nationally. We need to show up globally, we need to show up internationally, worldwide, and we need to allow persons to do it when they have that inclination, they have that access to find us, to connect, right? And so social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. But for me, my business started because I showed up to interviews with my crutches, and it was always just a running joke. It was, who boy did you kick? Did you follow the tree? And I get it. A lot of it wasn't like intentionally, I'm just trying to make fun of you. It was more that they were not accustomed to a professional with a disability to show up to these interviews. And here I am, big smile. Most of the times they didn't even recognize I was an amputee because, like I say, I have a superpower. I always keep them right here, I call it. And I would have to share with them, I'm an amputee. That's why I'm using the crutches. Most of the times the interview will not continue. There was one time I got my prosthetic and I had on a pair of shorts, not shorts, long trousers. And they just asked, she said, we noticed that you have a limp. Now I've already got my position, know what my pay is, and know when training is started. And I said, oh, yes, I'm an amputee. I wear a prosthetic leg. And I did not get that call back to start training. And so it happens. I know it's unbelievable in the 21st century, but there are many of us professionals at that who live with a disability or even acquire a disability on the job, and the job is no longer available to them. And so that's why it was important for me to then create this business and nonprofit organization that speaks to advocacy, disability justice, disability rights, trainings, empowerment, letting you know your rights, amplifying your voice, but also providing a service of disability inclusion strategies, policies, workplace culture trainings, workshops that then allow you as disability allies, for those who don't live with a disability, and corporate responsibility to integrate access, inclusion, opportunities, or we like to call it diversity, equity, and inclusion within your space. And so our main goal is to hire and train professionals with disabilities. And so our team consists of persons with disabilities because that's our goal. That's our target market. We're not necessarily looking for CVs and resumes for non-disabled persons because we recognize that that's been done. And so we want to increase access, training, certifications, expert matter specialists and disability and consultants and facilitators that can now integrate, increase, and to, for lack of a better word, show up authentically that we live with a disability. And guess what we can do? We can not only certify you, we can assess your space, help you with compliance, direct you in training, corporate training, DEI. And we like to throw the A in there because access is very real. And so that is where I've been diving in for over 17 years now, and it has allowed me to work in regional spaces. For one, I was able to then apply for a job at the university in their Office of Disabilities and Compliance that did not exist before.
Wow.
So this is why it's important to show up and show up authentically. Don't fit in anyone's mold. Don't fit. Know that you are of value. Even if no one else see it, you show up full blast, no caps. You show up and you let them know what you're here for. And if they don't get it, that's fine. They will get it because you're going to be consistent, you're going to be adaptive, and you're going to show up and they know where to find you. That's
Absolutely.
important. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in closing, what would you wish for?
I would wish that we reclaim our power as persons with disabilities. I would wish that when we hear the word disabled, disability, it is with strength, it is with pride, it is with you knowing that it is a part of your identity. I wish that our disability allies and persons who have the heart but may not have the will or the know-how connect with our community, with our professionals, learn more about our lived experiences, and help you craft your policy reforms, your procedures, your practices, the way that you think, the way that you communicate. Because the bottom line is access for everyone. The bottom line is sustainability, your growth of your brand, your consciousness, and when you acquire a disability, incident, accident, birth, or age, you will seamlessly move through access, inclusion, and opportunities that all human beings, including our marginalized groups, persons with disabilities, is inclusive of that. You will continue to thrive because that is where true community, true success, true sustainability, and innovation lies. And so, my wish is for you to, whether it's identity first language as a disabled woman or person, or a person first language, which is a person with a disability, whatever you find your strength in, you show up proudly. That's my
Absolutely.
wish.
Absolutely. Very powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much for just even opening my eyes to feeling
Mm-hmm.
very grateful for
Mm-hmm.
all the work that yourself and the community is doing. So thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking some of your time to hang out with me today and share some of your story and some of the awesomeness that you're doing. For those of you listening live or on the replay, if you resonated with Erin Brown and her story, check out her website. It's right above her head, erinbrownconnects.com. Her link is also in the description below. And feel free to connect with her on all the social media platforms and reach out and say hello. As you can see, she's incredibly open and loving. So I'm
Yes.
sure she would love to hear from you and hear your story. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this platform and love content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you
Mm-hmm.
follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As always,